Okay, good afternoon. This is a regular meeting of the Athens-Clarke County Board of Elections and Voter Registration. The date is July 12th and the time is 4:40 p.m. The first item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. If any member would wish to make a change to the agenda, the chair will entertain that. Otherwise, the chair will entertain a motion to adopt.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. The motion was made by Mr. Shirley, second by Ms. Till. All those in favor, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, the agenda is adopted as published. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from past meetings, and unfortunately, those are not ready. So we will go ahead and table that. Yeah, let's just go ahead and do a motion just to be.
Mr. Chair, I would move to table approval of the minutes until the August regular meeting.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor wishing to table the approval of minutes till the August regular meeting, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Those will be done at the August meeting. Let's make sure we all read them prior to the meeting. And mark up any edits we have.
Will this be online for us to do?
Will you be able to send them?
I will. I'll make sure they come out to you as PDFs.
Perfect. All right. So the next item on the agenda is the director's report, and the director was unable to make it today due to personal circumstances. There are two folks here from the office. Are you prepared? Three for everybody here, except for the director. But Pam and Lisa are here. Yes.
She doesn't have an update. The only thing that we have an update on is for Lisa to talk to you about the upcoming risk audit.
Now, she does typically talk about the activities report. Could you do that, Ms. Long? Or would you, or I'm happy to go over it.
Okay, because we got two activities reports, one from May and one from June, since,
Right.
we didn't have the meetings that last month, so, look like right now, we currently have 71,728 active voters. And this is June. May, we had 71,535. The cancellations, total for June was 93 compared to the prior month, which was 98. 7 moved out of state this month, the prior month 3, 64 deceased, 71 the prior month, felon removals 22, the prior month 62, and voters that transferred in and out, transferred in 321, prior month was 12, transferred out 322 versus 22. And basically those numbers would probably have a weight of difference in it because it was during registration time when it was closed and we couldn't do any transferring or any registration during the time of voting going on. Voter IDs requested this month was 31 and the last month was 38. And then absentee ballots that was mailed, looked like the prior month was 9,235 for the runoff. I guess it was 1,067, and then absentee ballots returned was 9,228 in the prior month, and then for the month of June, it was 985.
That's a good.
And then she stated,
They like me.
They do.
and then as she stated, Lisa will talk to us about the risk limiting.
Okay, so we decided to do a practice risk limiting audit of the runoff election because it'll be required that we do a risk limiting audit in November for the general. We want to make sure we've got our processes down so we can do it without any trouble because it all has to be done before certification in November. We're working with Voting Works, which is the company that the state works with every time. So in November, we'll work with them too. And so it'll be a hand count of certain number of batches. I think it's only 10 batches. So it's a hand tally of 10 batches of ballots, which turns out to be about 2,100 ballots that were batches that were randomly selected from all the information that I submitted to them. So we'll have 4 audit teams that I don't think it'll take very long to go through those and get them counted and submitted. And it's open to the public, and we'll start at 11 a.m. on July 27th.
11 a.m. July 22nd and
27th or 2nd?
27?
The 27th, we set aside 6 hours, but I don't, we hope to be through by 5. I think it'll only take a few hours to complete.
And are these from the runoff? Where do these ballots come from?
It's a risk limiting audit of the June runoff election on the District 10 Republican state the representatives race. I'm sorry, I can't remember the title. House District 10. So it's the race that had Mike Collins and Vernon Jones.
Okay. Okay. Just anyone else have any questions?
Lisa, how many vote review, how many?
Do you understand what it was?
It's the same.
Kind of.
So it's.
Hold on. Yeah.
Republicans.
I think you need them.
I need both of them. I don't need the nonpartisan.
Hold on.
I'm holding. I'm on pause.
I'll find out. Lisa, there she is. Vote review panel and duplication.
How many will you need?
I think maybe 6, possibly 4.
Well, it's a partisan,
So I don't need
Contest.
nonpartisan.
right?
We probably should do some research to see if you actually need a duplication team, because it's a hand tally, so nothing's going to be run through the equipment. So you shouldn't have to duplicate anything.
So just the vote review.
That's what I think, but we probably want to do some research.
Do we need a Republican, Democrat, and a board appointee or a judge appointee?
Judge appointees are for nonpartisan.
Okay, so the board will need to bring forward one person. The Republicans and the Democrats will need to bring forward,
I'm gonna send out an email
but we need to confirm.
if that's okay, and if y'all,
So,
see who's available on that.
there was a question in the chitter chatter back here about what is the risk limiting on it? Are you able to explain that one? And then my other question before we get into that was, so we're still in possession of all those ballots. They haven't been,
I knew we were
To the
going to,
clerk.
so I kept them out until this is
you
complete.
kept the entire bit or these
They're all-
they selected batches?
No, they're all sealed in the warehouse. All of the boxes are sealed.
Okay.
And they're in the sealed cages.
Got it.
And they'll go to clerk reports after we finish this.
After this. And this is just an exercise of
To
Practice.
practice and prepare our procedures for November.
got it. Okay, do you want to just ask your own question? I mean, I did.
Yeah, can you briefly explain the risk audit? Is this something that you're going to compare the outcome with what already came out, or how does that work?
So the goal is to get within, for our totals of the randomly selected batches, to be within 5% of the total that was submitted to the state for that race. Okay, and if we get within that 5 percentage points, then we're finished with the audit. We've proven that our results are correct. If for some reason we're not within that range, within that number of ballots that we counted, then Voting Works will submit to us the second round of the audit, and we'll keep going until we can prove that we were within the range.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for myself.
Go ahead.
On the inactive voters that we show, what is the current law under which the Secretary of State's office can remove them from the active voters list? Or is it up to the Secretary of State? Is there a number of years that they are inactive that they can be?
It's a long time,
Two general
about 2 general elections.
two presidential, right?
That's
Not-
Yeah, well, basically generally of the presidential.
8 years.
8 years?
Oh, eight.
And it's our duty to remove them.
Exactly. So we have
They
to
don't
bring those
remove
voters
them.
before you, before we
Okay.
can say, okay, yes, we'll have those voters that would be removed from the list.
But it doesn't have to be 8 years, because you can have, well, in 5 years, you can have two general elections.
Is it 5 years?
Can be.
It seems to me that in the back of my mind, I've got 5
It
years.
is as I just said, because it's the 4 election cycles, so that's 8 years.
Okay, so that's how it goes by the.
I mean, it doesn't happen every 8 years. It's 8 years of inactivity. So
Yeah, it's
it
8
could
years of
happen
inactivity.
More frequently than 8 years, but
Right.
it's the voters' 8 years of inactivity.
Thank you.
And I can do a little more research to see, but because I'm like, most of the time with voters' activity, if they're inactive after so long, then they go through what they call the confirmation notice. It goes through another clock before they be canceled or be in an inactive status. So let me see if I can do a little research to see, like you say,
Will
with
you
those inactive voters, how long will it really take for them to come off and what's that
include
process?
When you research, will you include your codes that you're?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to know how many of these 9,700 voters have reached 8 years.
Okay,
97.
No, these three inactive.
Yeah, and their inactivity can be untriggered, I guess.
Yeah.
If they sign a petition or do some type of activity, right? Okay, Mr. Shirley, question?
Were we going to get to the budget, or is that not part of the report? I have a question about it, but I don't want to jump the gun if we were going to be talking about the budget separately.
So the budget is included in our packet, but the director's not here, and I assume none of you are prepared to talk about it, so
Understood.
I guess that answers that.
Uh-huh. Yep, will do. Thanks.
Can we make a note for the minutes, though, to talk about in the next director's report, Hank's questions?
Mhm. Regarding, and thank you, how many years it takes for someone to go from inactive to.
This,
Plus, if we have any information on how many of these voters have
Maybe just
reached
the
8
process.
years.
That's right.
Process involved.
Thank you, right. Process involved in becoming inactive. And then how many of our 9,000 voters? Okay, got it.
okay. Any other questions about the director's report? Okay. Next item on the agenda is public comment. I didn't get the sheet.
I'll get it.
Okay, thank you. Water break. Setting the timer. Okay, so we have two people wishing to speak public comment. The first is Joshua Weir of 600 Mitchell Bridge Road. You'll be allowed 3 minutes to speak, and your time begins now.
All right. Hi, I live in precinct 6B, which you'll actually have a map of. I'm curious to know where that's
Speak
going.
up a little bit.
Oh, hi, I live in precinct 6B, which y'all actually have a map of. I'm curious to see where that's going. I didn't know about that. But I live at the edge of the Westchester neighborhood, and my primary mode of transportation is bicycle. And I'm here to talk about my polling place, which is the Georgia Square Mall. It's not ideal for most of the precinct, but especially for people who don't drive. It looks like, looking at census population numbers and just doing Google directions from a few choke points in the road network, I think 87% of our precinct lives closer to another polling place, either Timothy Road Elementary or Oglethorpe Elementary. And I think that conservatively 65% live closer to Oglethorpe Elementary alone. If you tune into a mayor and commission meeting, they're always talking about alternate modes of transportation. And I think if you were to distill local politics down to a few dimensions, how many resources a candidate would allocate to alternative transportation would probably be one of those dimensions. So I think it's kind of a relevant constituency, and by making it harder for this constituency to vote, put it on the scale. Westchester is about 33% of the population of the precinct. 13% of the precinct lives off of Huntington Road near the mall. Those are the only people for whom the mall is a better polling place than one of those elementary schools. The rest live off Tallahassee or Mitchell Bridge. They all live outside the loop, but because of the way the road network is, you have to cross the loop twice to get to the mall or go outside the county on 330 or get on the loop. So it's not great for pedestrians. Let's see, by American Community Survey data, about 13.9% or exactly 13.9% of the Westchester neighborhood households in Westchester neighborhood don't have a car. It's served by 3 buses. It's got sidewalks continuous to downtown. It's got a bike lane on Oglethorpe/Tallahassee, an intermittent one, but still. All those things go right by Oglethorpe Elementary. Nothing like that going to the mall. Mall is served by 2 buses. Only one actually stops anywhere in our precinct. And it's a one-way loop, so you have to go through downtown at least one leg of your journey, and it doesn't run evenings. Those constraints don't exist with, say, Oglethorpe Elementary. So that's basically it. I knew on the agenda that y'all are discussing a different polling place today. I just want to keep y'all to keep these kinds of concerns in mind. I'm intrigued that y'all have a map of my precinct. Want to know where that's going? That's all I came here to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next person wishing to make public comment is Jacqueline Elsner of 315 Caldwell Circle. You get to the podium, I'll begin your time.
Okay,
All right.
thank you, friends. I'm here to let you know I filed a complaint with the state election board last Friday. And it's to ask them to pursue an investigation that the Secretary of State's office is really not responding about the voting equipment, intrusion into the voting equipment in Coffee County on January 7, 2021. And it's really tied into, I watched the January 6th hearing just this afternoon, 1 to 4 o'clock. And we saw 2 hearings ago when Secretary of State Raffensperger testified that Antrim County, Michigan, was particularly featured as a place where voting machines had been unauthorized access. And it just turns out that within the same behavior happened in our Coffee County, Georgia. And at this point, the state election board hasn't yet asked follow-up questions of our Secretary of State's office. But in April, April 7th, 2022, the server in Coffee County was seized by the Secretary of State's office. There's more information I don't need to bore y'all with. Really, I'm just letting you know, I'm asking our state election board to be sure they're asking the proper questions of our Secretary of State, because basically the Secretary of State says they're doing an investigation, but they're not really revealing any evidence of it. And Judge Totenberg is asking them for some other answers. So anyway, and I know the point of this is that an intrusion into our voting equipment, which was spoken of today in Washington, that the intention was Sidney Powell wanted to be given power and Michael Flynn to seize voting equipment in our states. And Georgia would have been one of them because it was going to be Arizona, Georgia. Okay, this is pretty serious stuff. So I would just like our state election board to be the proper check and balance on what our Secretary of State's office can do. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. What's going on over there?
I thought I was telling you my time was up.
No, you had it 53 seconds. Okay, thank you for that. And it looks like there's no others wishing to make public comment. The next item on the agenda under old business is discussion about alternate location for 4A due to space constraints. I will kick it off and then board members can make comments. We have a map. We'll see where we go from there. So the reason why it's on the agenda is 4A is a challenging location for voters. There's no space in there and there's no ADA parking. That's some of our concerns. We hope to move it. We hope to have a thorough process in which we do move it. We will discuss it. And I believe we have a map with some suggestions, and then we'll hold some public hearings in hopes that we can have it in place for the November election. Multimodal, yeah, for those that don't know, 4A, that's the multimodal transit center. And then Ms. Tiller, you can go, Mr. Shirley and Mr. Kadir.
My question would be, has anyone done any research on this? Has anyone discussed this? Do we have any information to go forward with this today?
I believe that the intent was to have a discussion, not to have a vote today for one,
Okay.
if that answers that. And I don't know what, Pam, were you just the delivering person of these maps or can you speak?
Those are the maps that, just show the potential locations that would be, available for polling places in those two particular precincts. So we just got two each.
Two each, got it.
That's,
Okay.
so that you all can look over them and discuss possible polling locations.
We can do there. So where?
So that's 4A.
So that's.
Where, I'm disoriented here.
Multimodal is, multimodal is up.
Here's east, it's over here.
Yeah, right there. Yeah. That's it, yeah.
Yes. So. This is where we currently are, which is outside of the actual precinct in which people are voting. And are these dots the recommendation of GIS?
Is this with the airport that we're talking about, one of the locations?
I think, yes.
Right, which would
Yeah,
be,
so that's up here, but nobody lives in most of that part, right?
so like it's a good landmark, right? Well, you can easily tell people where it is, but no one's gonna be right next to it.
So how far would it be from where this line going here? I imagine that's a road.
Oh, this is Lexington,
Yeah, Lexington.
Bunny Street.
So from Lexington Road to that
That's a big,
airport,
that's a long drive.
Okay. Spring Valley, yeah.
Winterville
Spring
Road.
Valley's probably only about a mile or so.
This is Spring Valley.
I'm sorry, right, yeah, Spring
This
Valley.
is, your better notice.
Yeah. So are we talking like 2 or 3 miles, 4 or 5 miles? I mean, typically, how far do people drive to vote? I live off Cherokee. I go to the tennis center. That's probably about 5 miles from me.
Mhm.
So I don't
I
know the
live a
average.
mile and a half from where I vote.
I live next to Park Central, that's where I vote, so it's right next to it. We
So
can walk
you
to
two
vote.
don't count.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
Hank lives behind his,
So I guess if we're thinking about, I guess to illustrate, if you're trying to get here by road, if you're in the precinct, yeah, you're gonna take Winterville Road by the old Carmike and go, that's the only way to get there unless you want to go down next
You
between
can go
Lowe's and
back.
Walmart or Lowe's and
Yeah.
the old Piggly Wiggly and go that way.
Not much traffic.
Not much traffic that way.
Parking's available.
Yeah, that's true. That's a big downside. It's off the beaten path.
It's
so the other, let me just read out the other dots.
Okay.
It's, so there's a Coney Street United Methodist Church indicated. Some of them are not probably indicated for that purpose, like the park and ride. The district court admin room, Cornerstone Christian Academy, Facilities and landscape. So that one's right up the street here, or I guess we're not in Lexington. If we were over there, it'd be up the street. Living Hope Church, the Diversion and Work Center. Yeah, I don't think all these are intended for,
That's definitely not one, right? That right.
oh, yeah,
This is just landmarks, I think.
yeah.
So most of those are,
Is it the ones in purple? I would have.
So I
imagined?
have the names of the ones that have been suggested in
Yeah,
prior discussions.
and I-
Airport, First Pentecostal, which is right here.
Okay.
So all the same problems of the airport off the beaten path. But that's where that is. And the other one that that I'd heard before was Tuxton Methodist, which is right off of Lexington. It is right near what used to be Fats Cafe. So that is
Way out here.
right. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah, that's out of
that's
the
also
district.
outside the district. Yeah. So
There's this Cornerstone Christian Academy, Living Hope Church. And there's the Coney Street United Methodist Church, which I don't think there's a good parking situation there.
the Cornerstone, that's by the tennis center.
Right.
Where we go vote, so they would have a lot of parking there. It's a large building. I've not been inside. I don't know what their facility would be like. But the airport is a government facility, so that would always be available to us. This Cornerstone looks like another good large location, parking. Other than the highway going by there, there's not really that much traffic.
right.
Yeah, and I've heard that it is possible for transportation to make a special election day route.
Yeah.
Obviously, that would be an ask from.
The
That's-
bus goes
that's
to
where it would end, but-
Walmart, which is right up the road from it, so it wouldn't be that far out of there.
Oh, you're talking this one?
Yeah.
Now, what did Charlotte say last time? That there's a large percentage of this precinct that traditionally votes early or absentee,
Think so.
right? You guys know?
Yes. That's fine.
Yes. Answer is yes, okay.
Early and or absentee, so there shouldn't be much traffic.
It's one of our smallest precincts as far as frequency of voter on election day.
Okay, so we're not talking about large percentage of voters.
Which I guess is what makes multimodal center, although it looks very small and cramped and unfit for it. If it's going to be any precinct, that one is the one I guess could fit there, just right up there.
Again, it's not even in.
Right. And so I guess the way I'm thinking of this is if we're going to change precincts, something has to be really severely broken about this one. And it being out of the precinct is unpalatable to me, but the deal breaker to me is the parking that was there is gone.
Yeah, there's no parking.
It's part of the Classic Center arena. Right, so it's gone. It is even less ideal than it used to be.
And
it already
moving
wasn't that
back
great.
into the district would be one of the pluses.
Right. We could, like, as we were talking about over email, I have ideas about how we could make this work. We could make some changes to provide ADA parking to make it work. And we can go that route, but yes, we also have some options that staff suggested. I don't know how easy it is, because I imagine there's like a long series of conversations that have to go on between the Board of Elections Office and a potential place to vote to figure out, hey, are you willing to? Here's what we need to do. Here's the electrical infrastructure you need. And I guess maybe the ones that staff had discussed with us before already have been vetted maybe. So
don't know.
maybe some of these ones we're pointing out would work, but I don't know that we've had those conversations with them yet. So.
I know in the past, when we've had schools and churches, they have other programs going on. There's times we can use them, times we can't use them. Facilities not really that good, parking and such. That's why it doesn't personally matter to me. I don't vote there, but it seems like the airport would really be, government facility would really be a good choice. I mean, a mile or two more to vote, I don't think people would complain about.
And I mean, you gotta do, maybe if it might even be closer than,
Right.
depending on where you're coming. If you were over here,
Right.
that might be closer.
Right.
There's a lot of government, public land in this precinct, like, do people live? Nobody lives, I mean, people live right there. Oh, a little bit there. And then That's where the people live.
Yeah, when we saw this, remember this part of that district map, this is one of those that had 0 residents, right? It was a big plot of land, but it's just all airport. So
It's the
it's just
airport, it's
JO, all that
all
stuff,
that
yeah.
stuff, yeah.
But if people are going from this dense area into Athens or into anywhere, they would most likely go up Lexington.
Hmm.
So I don't know that it would be horribly out of their way. I mean, I haven't spoken with any of them just to ask, but they certainly wouldn't be going off in the other direction to go grocery shopping, or they would be
Mhm.
going up Lexington.
And I've spoken to some of the commissioners and they were surprised to learn that the bus did not go to the airport to begin with.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider. Hank?
For me, if you're going to change, and it looks like we have to pretty much, the most important thing is to be able to identify the location. Now, I lived on the east side for 20 years. I know where Tuxton Methodist Church is. But all those locations, somebody will have to look it up. They will have to go online. They have to try and look at the address. And I just don't think that's very feasible. Considering the big positive we have for the airport is, first of all, more than half the people are either voting early or they're voting absentee. Airport is identifiable. Nobody can say, I don't know where it is. All those other places, if there was a fire station there, maybe we can make someone. To me, it's not an issue to make someone go once every 2 years or a few times every couple of years, 3 or 4 miles to vote. I mean, none of those locations, everybody's going to be able to walk there anyway. So to me, that's going to be an issue. So what I would like to hear from the staff a little bit down the road is, are there any negatives for the airport? Is there
I
anything
have
that?
one question that we'll turn over to staff. Is our warehouse lobby an option?
Because of parking, it's not.
Got it.
If we didn't share that building with 2 other departments, maybe, but.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this on a chair and feel free to provide input, staff.
I know that Charlotte did the preliminary work to get a room at the airport for us, but as far as going out and seeing the room and doing the electrical evaluations that would have to be done, that hasn't been done yet. But I know that we have clearance to use whatever space they can provide us in the airport. I'm just imagining all of the signage that it will take to lead the voters into the right area at the airport there. I mean, we have other precincts that are like that too, so it's not that big of a deal, but you would have to get voters used to exactly where they're going over there.
And if someone has driven out all the way out there, if they miss a sign, which is very unlikely to me, they're not just going to turn around and go back. They're going to ask someone there, and people there will know.
And from what I remember, there is plenty of parking.
There's not much else out there that they would not be able to find at the airport. You just look at the landing of the planes. I mean, it's pretty.
It would just be finding the correct location within the airport and not getting frustrated trying to find the right spot, the right building.
Mr. Shirley has a question, and then I have a question about the process.
I wonder,
Comment.
I want to be sure that I understand correctly the significance of saying, of the fact that 4A has a large percentage of the voters that vote absentee in person or absentee by mail. Is that right? They vote early or by mail, which means they never use multimodal center, right? Because if they're voting early, that's not an option. They only have the 4 or the smaller number of locations we use. So it won't matter to them if the same people vote early all the time in 4A. It's the people that are voting in person. So I want to make sure I had that right. That means that for a lot of people, they don't even use that right now. A lot of our voters, they vote other ways. But yeah, I think that, for the reason that we're talking about, I believe that the airport we're going to make a change, and I don't want to discuss this lightly, right? Like, to make a change in time for the November election means we need to be really clear, big billboard kind of stuff. I'm thinking it's the airport, y'all. But I think the constraints of multimodal center, especially the parking lot, are severe enough that I think we should keep talking about making the move.
On our signage, we could have a plane that says vote on the side of it.
I like it. I like it.
My question is for Ms. Pappas. Is there like a standard or some type of public notification process we would follow that
Yes,
is standard to the
So-
government or?
21-2-265 talks about changing the precinct.
Uh-huh.
Shall not change until notice of the proposed change has been published for once a week for 2 consecutive weeks in the legal organ. And then there's other requirements of signage at the prior location, directing the voter where to go, and signage at the new location.
Right.
So there's public notice that has.
What does it say about having hearings or info, town halls or whatever thing you wanna?
That, I don't believe there's a requirement for that, that just, it's about.
Is there like a best practice in the municipal government association or whatever, all that, you know? I think you know what I'm
But yeah,
getting
talk
at.
about like the Georgia Municipal Association.
Yeah,
I don't,
like if they change some other something,
not aware of any, but I will,
like what would maybe the planning department, if they're gonna change the zoning from this to this, right?
so
Was there-
planning department, there's several statutes that
That
apply
require-
to
statute,
zoning.
okay.
So yeah, there's state law that talks about zoning changes and notice
Got it.
requirements and that kind of stuff, so.
And is it we need to make a decision no less than 2 months prior?
So.
Is it, there's some 90 or 60-day
60 days.
period?
Yes. Because you and I talked about that before.
Yeah.
I think you were saying by
Like
August.
Charlotte, yeah, I think August was our,
Except in a case of emergency or unavoidable event occurring within 10 days of a primary election, which emergency or event renders any polling place unavailable for use at such primary election. Superintendent shall not change any polling place until notice of the proposed change have been published for once a week for 2 consecutive weeks in the legal organ. Additionally, during the 7 days before and on the day of the first election following such change, a notice of such change shall be posted on the previous polling place and at 3 other places in the immediate vicinity thereof.
but there's nothing stopping us from doing hearings or sending letters or,
No, and that's partly, I mean, that's part of the reason for the notice is to put the public on notice, and then I would suspect you would have a final meeting. So you would put the notice in the legal organ once a week for 2 consecutive weeks. And then you would have, after that notice has been, I hate to say notice, but after that notice has been published in the legal organ, you would have another meeting and then finally vote or adopt at that meeting the polling place. So if public did want to comment on it, they can come to that meeting.
so could we, the agenda says discussion, could we decide to place a notice at this August meeting if we're all in agreement on a location? Or do we need to do that in August and then September? Do the 2 weeks between the August and September meeting?
Closer to the
So-
election, and further away from the election is what you're saying?
No, further away, because that is more notice, we can post a thing and somewhere that says, we really hate the airport, we love multimodal, and then we can reevaluate our.
But people tend to forget when the time frame is so great in between the events.
Mhm.
So you definitely need something as close to the election as possible. Maybe we could put something far away and then something close up to remind them.
I have a question for that.
Go ahead.
So I wanted to clarify. So 60-day period, within 60 days of the election, no changes can be made unless there's like an emergency, right? That's what the code section is talking about in F, I believe.
Oh, I was like.
Sorry.
Primary election. Or change within 30 days prior to any special primary or special election.
So then just to give us like an idea, this is, I'm building back up to where y'all were just talking about. Mr. Chair, 60 days before November the 8th is going to be September the 9th. So that is Friday that is the go, no go time, right? Once we pass that, we can't. So we need to kind of back up from there, right, as far as
So
the
what
plan.
date is our September meeting? Maybe that's why I had August in my head.
Gotcha. Our regular September meeting would be the second Tuesday, which is the 13th.
Yeah, see,
So that
that's
would
why I
be-
had August in my
I
head.
see. So we would need a special meeting
A special meeting or do it.
or in the August meeting. I see what you're talking about. So then
I think that's how I got it.
So then my concern with that then, if you were suggesting, before we even get down whether we can based on what the agenda says, before we jump, so to speak, to a new polling place, I would want to be very sure, because for better or worse, multimodal center works. Checks the boxes, we can make it work if we had to. I would want to be really certain that whatever place, the airport, for example, was ready for us, had all the stuff we needed, could check all the boxes before we put billboards out
Charlotte's
there.
done that work already.
I thought that was some of the work though.
Oh,
All she did was clear that we can use the building.
okay.
That's it.
Electrical outlets and such, she's not checked out.
And so to wrap up, Mr. Chair, I'm all for definitely let people know ahead of time, get out in front of it, be very clear, but I want to be sure that we're ready to make that jump before we start doing that. But you're right, we have a very tight timeline now.
Shall we make a resolution to request staff to look into 4A and report to us at the next one, whether there are any ramifications?
I do want to remind you guys that we can't remember the exact date, but it was a couple of months ago, there was an email sent that Charlotte sent asking to wait through this election cycle and not do anything. For many reasons, which she outlined in the email that I can't remember all of them right now. And I thought that we had agreement that we were waiting. But that would be something you'd want to check on.
Yeah, I don't recall.
I'm looking that up and I definitely agreed at the time, unless there was, is the word exigent, unless there was something, a dire circumstance that made us have to,
Yeah,
and
I
that
think,
parking is what did it for me. It was the parking situation.
yeah, that ADA situation does not work for
We
me.
can make it work with a Band-Aid, but I just, so.
I think that was the discussion. We were on and then we were off and then we were on.
Yeah.
I thought we were back in on. But,
The reason I mean, if you're going to do a Band-Aid solution, I would support it only with the understanding that we will continue that 2 years from now. Because what I would not like is to change, to Band-Aid now and then again start in 2024 for the 24 election, because I would rather a couple of people miss this one, but everyone realizes that we have moved. So there is no ambiguity as where they have to go for 2024.
guess I'm just not following what the hesitation is.
We don't know that, I'm sorry, my hesitation is that if we go ahead with this now, we don't know that that place is, like, for example, since we don't know if the electrical infrastructure is there for us at the airport, they would have to get a contractor in to make it happen. Oops, we can't get that right now. We have to take down the billboard, put the old billboard back and say, no, never mind, it's multimodal center after all. Egg on our face, sorry.
Okay.
What about we get with Charlotte by phone, however we could do this, tell her what we're discussing. We need to know what she plans to do to check this out. And then if we need to, we can have a special called meeting to discuss it and vote on it. We don't have to wait till August.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I will just add that I don't believe there'll be any of the issues that are being forecast as the county building that deals with airplanes. So they're gonna have plenty of power.
So do we need a motion for that?
I think so, or one of us could just take on the task of calling Charlotte and getting more information.
You're hired.
Okay, I was gonna hire you, but.
Mr. Chair, if I could,
Yeah,
so I would advise the best cause of action, or what you should do, is make a resolution directing staff to do whatever testing they have to do of the airport facility to ensure that it is capable of handling elections.
Yeah.
And that at the regular August meeting, and before then, you could get an update from staff so that at the regular August meeting, you can discuss whether or not you want to change the precinct at that time. We can go ahead and do
and
notice.
begin the notification.
we can begin the notification process. And then if it doesn't change in August, then we can still potentially change it in like an early meeting in September. There's nothing in the statute that says we can't give notice in advance more than these 2 weeks. So we
And
can start giving notice now.
And I want to do the due diligence of doing more than is required for this.
But again,
Yeah.
like with Mr. Shirley's concerns that, and presumably that building, because it's a government facility, would have all the capabilities.
Right.
It's possible
But
that
it's
all the
unknown.
chairs are, I mean, you've got air traffic control and that kind of stuff, maybe they take so much power that their concern is that we put in a whole bunch of, we don't want air traffic control crashing.
Okay, so
Pretty good.
can we do a resolution now or what, how can we do this? To move,
Yeah, you can just do like an oral resolution to direct staff to,
but we don't need to write out a whereas, therefore be it.
Right.
Sign it, pass it around. Okay. Any more comments?
I think that,
Take a vote, move on.
yeah, I think we got enough information.
Yeah, and that also gives Willa a chance to make some input because I know she feels strongly about this.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are you going to put in the resolution that you just want the room that we're going to use evaluated for electrical, or you want, I'm not sure we can ask them to do the electrical work before you decide that we're gonna use it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right. I think the evaluation would be, yes, it's capable and a county facilities department can do it on X date. Or no,
So just an evaluation.
county facilities could do it, but it would cost this much and we don't, you know.
And if there is any reason or something comes up that is, that just does not work with that facility, we would like to know. Which I'll be surprised.
So the chair will entertain a resolution,
Motion?
motion.
I think I have what might be what.
Go ahead.
I'm talking about. So I move that we direct staff by August 9th, 2022, to do whatever testing is needed to ensure the Van Epps Airport facility is or can be made capable of handling the November 8th, 2022 general election as polling place for precinct 4A. If that correctly summarizes what we're.
Yeah, before it changes the date, I'd like to say for the staff to report on that date.
To
Report on August 9th rather than say by. How did you work?
Oh, I see. So I have to direct staff to do whatever testing is needed by August the 9th to ensure that.
To
Yeah,
have
and
staff
report to
report.
us by-
Oh, I see.
That's the
report.
meeting date,
I see.
right?
So to direct staff to report by August 9th.
Yes.
So one of the things. Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, is that?
Okay.
If that's appropriate, Mr. Chair, I will make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, there we go. I will just add that we've had similar conversations about 6B, but we have not gotten that far into it. But your comments were heard, and I share many of the same sentiments as you, so. Thank you for that. The next item on the agenda is new business. And that item is amending our bylaws regarding allowing public comment at all meetings. Mr. Secretary, did you have a chance to send us the draft of that?
Mhm.
And did I miss it in my email?
I emailed it to the board most recently on the 4th of July.
I was busy.
Right, as were we all. I had an email, the same thing on June 26th.
Okay.
I'm happy to pull it up and we can look at it on
Sure.
my screen.
It was a,
Did you send it to my Gmail?
Believe I've gotten in the habit, I thought of sending it to both. Yes, ma'am. I did.
did you have a chance to read it?
And it's here.
Which one?
The bylaw?
Here's the,
Not last week, but I did it the one before that. Yeah, I think removing that one line.
that's one clause, right? I'm happy to.
We have satisfied,
Because I think we discussed it in detail.
yeah, we have.
Okay.
We, My concern is we satisfied whatever other section of our bylaws says to notify the members X amount of days prior to making a change.
I will double check, but I believe that
Okay.
we are in compliance. Two shakes of the lamb's tail to check. Okay, maybe three shakes. Our bylaws state any proposed amendments must be provided to board members at least 10 days prior to the meeting in which board members are to vote on said proposed amendments.
I think we're good then. Because you said on the 26th. So. All right, the chair will entertain a motion to make that amendment to our bylaws. Want to read it again?
I will, I'm sorry, yes, I
We need
will.
to hear it again.
That would, I
Just
guess,
read it and then I'll just say. I don't want to say that whole thing.
understood. The amendment would be to remove from section 9 of Article 6, the clause where the board will vote on a substantive issue within its authority as the election supervisor and board of registrars of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia. That would be stricken from the bylaws.
I make a motion to do so.
Okay, do we have a second? All those in favor? Raise your hand. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Look on a roll here. All right, the next item on the agenda, I believe we may have to table because it's involving the directors.
She was going to look into the logistics of it, so.
Do you want to speak to it at least, just so it's on the record of what?
Basically, I had asked the director to just look into the possibility of providing lunch for all our board members. I think it would be a good gesture.
So I believe, do you want to table it? Do you want
Yeah,
to
we'll
move it to the
take this
next?
because Charlotte was going to look into some kind of budget. I think she said, spend your budget, but just the process of how to go about it would be a little bit difficult, so.
Want to make the motion?
Yeah, if you can go ahead and table the business of the discussion of providing lunch for the board.
Right, do we have a second?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I hate to interrupt, but whenever we table something, I always like that to give some kind of date or time.
Oh,
Right,
yeah.
so either table
yes.
it to the next meeting or table it up to 90 days, just have some kind of time.
So let's table it for next meeting. It's a very brief discussion.
I'll second that motion.
You still wish to second? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Final item on the agenda are announcements. August regular meeting is Tuesday, August 16th
Lexington?
here.
Here.
Here. And
Mr. Chair,
here,
just a
yes.
moment. I would like to ask Ms. Pappas, will we be receiving a report next week on that procedure for a voter challenge that we had received some emails this morning? You were going to look into it.
I believe there was an email that was sent, so check your email for one.
Okay,
And I think if the secretary and I or other members feel like putting it on the agenda for the next meeting, then
we can do
we'll
that.
go ahead.
Okay.
The next meeting is on Tuesday, August 16th at 4:30 at this building, which is the planning department building at 120 West Doherty Street.
I'm so sorry.
Go
I'm
ahead.
so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Is that wrong?
That's incorrect. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, that's why I
I'm
was.
very sorry.
raising
That
an
should
eyebrow.
read the 9th. The
Yeah.
first Tuesday is the second Tuesday is 9th. I apologize.
Okay, great. So we'll just rewind here. The next regular meeting is on Tuesday, August 9th at 4:30 PM at this building, which is 120 West Doherty Street, Athens. The upcoming deadlines for the 2022 elections are as follows. August 22nd is the first day to apply for an absentee ballot for the November general election. October 11th is the last day to register to vote in time to vote in the November general election. October 17th, advanced voting begins for the November general election. Schedule and times will be announced once they're determined. October 28th is the last day to submit absentee ballot applications for the November election. November 8th is the election day, and that is the last day to vote in person for it's just, yeah, election day.
Mr. Ralph, I need to add some dates, if you don't mind.
Sure.
September the 20th,
Okay,
as far as Uacava, September the 20th is the earliest day to mail or either send electronic ballots for Uacava voters. October the 10th is the earliest day that we can mail regular absentee ballots, but October 10th is Columbus Day. So there will be no mail. So October 11th.
did you capture that?
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. If you wouldn't mind one more time, back to the UCOP, September 20th is the earliest day.
September the 20th is the earliest day to mail or do electronic ballots for Uacava voters.
Mail or due, would that be on our end to send them out or for a voter to request?
No, for us to send them out.
Understood, thank you.
Yes,
And then October the 11th, because October the 10th is a holiday,
yes,
that is the earliest day we can mail
for
regular absentee.
regular absentee ballots.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Thanks, sir.
The runoff, if it were necessary, would be December
First Tuesday.
first,
December 6th.
December 6th.
Well done.
Okay. I think that is all for announcements unless any other member wishes to make an announcement. Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Okay, we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
That's okay.
We need to sign the cancellation report though.
It's two of them. Yes. Thank you.
Do you, is